Hello ladies and gentlemen, Mr. T back yet again, and we are here in our fourth video. Yes, I know the yellow shirt. I threw the overshirt on. Don't worry, I didn't actually wear this as the undershirt. I put the undershirt on under this. I wore this shirt today. It's kind of nice. Feels good too. But I'm gonna have the yellow shirt on. The yellow shirt is going to be in every one of my videos, whether I'm wearing it or it's in the background somewhere. It's kind of my unofficial uniform for these videos now. But we are here with our First Amendment, our fourth video, and it is the assembly section. Now, we have religion, speech, and we have our press video, which was our last one. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more video after this, and that is, that's right, we have petition after this one. That's the last one. Now, this video, assembly, okay? I don't do this side that much. So our assembly video and our petition video kind of go hand in hand, and I'll get to that. The reason why is assembly. When we think of assembly, a lot of people think of, I mean, beyond the actual like assemblies, a lot of people think of like protest rallies and things like that, and that's exactly what it means. Assembly. Now, assembly also means protest rallies and things like that. That's part of the whole assembly. It also means just your right to get with a group of people and hang out. Okay, it means both. All right, and the reason that this amendment and this part of the amendment and the second part, petition, go together is petition means to petition the government. So when you're assembling and when you're going on, you know, those marches and rallies and things like that, probably one of the most famous is the March on Washington, the I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King Jr. That was covered under this part of the First Amendment, freedom of assembly. But they were also, in a way, kind of petitioning the government. Anytime, whether it be the Vietnam rallies or the War March rallies after World War I, where soldiers were shot during the Great Depression, things like that, they were in a way also, they weren't just assembling, they were kind of petitioning the government too. Okay, so that's kind of why these two amendments go hand in hand. All right. Now, there is a section of this part of the amendment that doesn't go with petition, your right to just assemble with people. But for the most part, we use assembly to, do protest rallies and marches and things like that. So, as always, I'm going to give you guys a quick little history behind why we have this amendment. So, during the colonial days, when we were part of Great Britain, when we were colonies of Great Britain, it was illegal to assemble in public. Now, if you were walking with someone, like to some place, or you in like a tiny group, like 3 or 4 people, that was fine. But to actually meet in like the center of town, this gentleman named William Penn, he was actually the founder of the colony of Pennsylvania, which would become the state Pennsylvania. Probably one of the more prominent colonies in in that time. He was a preacher. Pretty much everyone back then was some type of, or not everyone, but everyone back then was like Christian or some type of religious affiliation to Christianity. Not everyone, but for the most part, like 99%. So he was holding in public a public mass, and the government was all for religion. The religion and monarchy had a huge, or the religion and nobles and things like that had a huge presence in government back then. Huge. They went hand in hand with one another. But William Penn, he decided to give a sermon, which is kind of like a religious speech, outside and have people assemble outside. And he got in trouble for it. He actually got in trouble for doing something that the government is okay with, and that is basically preaching or speaking about religion or Christianity and stuff like that. And he got in trouble for it because he was assembling a large crowd in the open. Now, he was inside the church or something, that would have been okay, but he was doing it outside in like an open area, and he got in trouble for it. And the reason for this is, throughout history, monarchs, which is kind of like a king or a queen or an emperor, they get really uneasy when people start to assemble, because when people start to assemble in big groups, they feel that people are going to start uprising. And not even when they're assembling in like the streets and stuff, but even when they're assembling in like private properties and things like that, they still get uneasy. And pre this amendment, so when we were in the colonial age, it wasn't just assembling, or it wasn't just illegal to assemble outside in the open. You couldn't assemble in private quarters either. The Sons of Liberty, which was kind of like our first real, kick the British group out there, the first people who really started standing up against the British in the our colonial days, they weren't even allowed to meet in private houses. If the government found out that these Sons of Liberty, especially closer to the actual revolution, were meeting, they would go kick down the door, bust in, take them away, and stuff like that. So assembly both means the assembly to meet in private property, and also the assembly to meet out in the open. Now, when we apply this amendment today, we have other amendments that protect our private property. So this amendment really is more for public spaces. However, and I'm going to cover that a little later, however, it can also mean private property. Now, your private property, if you're one of the people meeting, you can't go into someone else's private property and meet there. Now that we have the history kind of down, kind of going to just go into some of the things that this amendment protects. Okay, so probably one of the biggest things that this is, now like I said in the last video, states, we'll cover this. The Supreme Court has ruled that that freedom of assembly does apply to the states. Okay, that was determined in, I think, 1937. It was a Supreme Court case. They did determine that it does apply to states. Like I said in the last video, the press video, that every amendment is up in the air, and pretty much every amendment has been fought over, whether the states have to follow it or not. The Supreme Court did say that freedom of assembly, the states do have to follow it. The next major thing is, the Supreme Court has ruled that states cannot require organizations such as, Boy Scouts, the NAACP, things like that, the KKK, people like that, all private organizations, they do not, I repeat, do not have to tell the states who's in their organization. So if they have like a members list, they can keep that members list private. And the Supreme Court said that if they release that members list to like the public or to the states or something, it would impede people's willingness to go be part of that group. Because if someone wanted to be part of that group kind of in secret and the state knew, it's no longer a secret. And the Supreme Court said that would violate your ability to assemble. Okay? Another major thing is, and this is the most biggest thing they're out there right now, and this is probably the number one thing that this section of the First Amendment protects, and that is your ability to protest peacefully. Okay, the key word here is peacefully. Okay, you're gonna see it pop up like right here. Okay, you can protest whatever you want. You can go on marches around the town. You can go and sit out in front of places. There is a gentleman, actually the original gentleman passed away, but there is someone who was sitting out in front of the White House for over 30 years, living in a tent, protesting war. Literally, and I don't mean he didn't go to a job during the day and come back. He literally lived and slept in a tent across the street from the White House protesting war. And he did it for like 30 plus years before he finally passed away. And there's even someone who's there now actually, living on his legacy. I'll actually throw a picture in there because I actually took a picture of the person when I was in D.C. And he has the right to do that. I think it's he, but they have the right to do it. I think someone switches off with the gentleman. I think it's a woman, but they have the right to do that under the right to peacefully assemble. Even if the views are unpopular, and this is where the next thing come in. Okay, the Supreme Court has ruled. The Supreme Court case was against the Nazi Party, and now I know you're thinking Nazis. We're not in Germany. There is a Nazi Party in the United States. Okay, they follow the same doctrine that the Nazis in Nazi Germany have, but they're here in the United States. It's like there's only like 1,000 members, if that. Out of the 320 million we have in the U.S., it's only like 1,000 people, give or take. Actually, probably more than that. But the Nazis and to an extent the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, they can meet. Okay, they still hold massive rallies and marches through cities, through major cities. Okay, there was one in the capital of my state a few years back, and there was nothing anyone could do because they were peaceful about it. They didn't go and harass people. They didn't go beat people up. They just marched through the streets peacefully. And the Supreme Court said that under this section of the First Amendment, you can do that as long as it is peaceful. Another major thing that it says is private organizations. Now we're going to get into private, okay? Everything I've been saying now is public. If you are in the public space, okay, like on streets and sidewalks, things like that, now I'm talking private. The Supreme Court has ruled that you cannot protest on private property. So you can't go onto someone's private property and protest. You can protest, like, if here's the start of their property, you can protest right here, okay? But you can't cross that line. The other thing is, private organizations can exclude people, okay? So, like, if you, now, here's the turn on. You can't exclude someone at a public school. So if you start like a Christian organization at a school and you want to have someone wants to come and join who may be another religion, may not conform to that Christian organization's views and stuff, you still have to let them join. the Supreme Court said. Now, if you're at a private school, that's a whole other story. But if you're at a public school, like a major university or something, you have to let them join. And all right. So one final thing, since I'm hitting my 10-minute mark, the Supreme Court did rule that they can set up buffer zones around certain things, and the actual court case talked about abortion clinics. They can set up a buffer zone around the abortion clinic, and you're not allowed to protest inside that buffer zone. However, the flip side is, if someone walks out of that clinic, you can protest as close to that person as you want once they leave that buffer zone. As long as you don't like touch them or anything like that and actually hurt them. As long as you're peaceful about it and you have hands off, you can get as close to that person as you want to protest. Okay? Now, if you like follow them home and stalk them and something, that's a whole nother story. But if you're protesting them in the public area, that's fine. And the Supreme Court has ruled that that's okay, because putting the buffer zone around that area is basically it's taking away certain freedoms to help with others. I can't remember the exact wording of how they worded it, but that's basically what they said. However, once you leave the buffer zone, your First Amendment, the other person's First Amendment rights go right back into play, and you can protest as close as you want to that person. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of time. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I love teaching people, so that's kind of why I'm going a little over. But you guys know, you guys love me, and you guys love my yellow shirts. So, stick around for the last one, and that is petition. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, petition shouldn't be too long a video. So, I'm going to sign off, ladies and gentlemen. As always, stay beautiful, Americans. Yellow. Actually, blue.